Two-piece zirconia implants, are they the perfect solution or do they have hidden pitfalls? Stick around as we uncover the good, the bad and the surprising. Welcome back. I am Dr. Tobias Steinherr, or Dr. Tobias, specialist for ceramic implants in biological dentistry, and in today's video we take a closer look on two-piece zirconia implants. If you haven't seen part 1 about the benefits and the hidden problems of one-piece ceramic implants, you can watch it right here, and I will link you the video down in the description box as well. There are some important differences between the different systems. Systems like Straumann or BioHorizons Chemlock use titanium or gold screws, or like Straumann, even a whole titanium base, which will only be covered with zirconia on the outside. And that means you're not entirely metal-free. This can be a deal breaker or a knockout criteria for patients who chose ceramic implants specifically to avoid any metal. Then you have brands like Ceramics and Noble, which is basically exactly the same system, because Noble just uses ceramics under their own label. So both systems use a carbon-based screw, and SET Systems takes it even a step further with zirconia screws. Well, let's talk about zirconia screws for a moment. Zirconia is great under pressure, but it's not as resistant to tensile forces. This means that you can only use a very low torque. And frankly, that's where I get a little bit cautious, especially when you consider that even titanium screws, which can be torqued up to 35 Newton centimeters, sometimes come loose. And we are talking about metal on metal with cold welding effects. So for now, I'm a bit skeptical how this screw retention will perform over time. SDS, on the other hand, uses small peak screws with very low torque of 5 to 10 Newton centimeters. But in contrast to the other systems, these peak screws aren't meant to retain the post, they just hold it in place while the cement is screwing, because their posts are cemented and not screw retained, so you could basically just skip the screw without losing any connection strength. This brings us to a major difference that sets SDS a bit apart from other two-piece systems, because their abutment is not really an abutment, they call it a post, and they call it a post for a reason. So let me explain the difference. The post functions like an extension of the tulip-shaped tissue level part of the implant, which must be prepped during the restoration. The post is cemented in place, so there is no actual need for a screw retention system. So essentially, you're transforming a two-piece implant into a one-piece implant with all the benefits we discussed in the previous video. It's like having a hybrid implant that offers the best of both worlds. They even have special shapes like an oval-shaped emergence profile, allowing for more natural-looking final crowns. Ceraroot offers different shapes as well, but as I mentioned, they also only offer one-piece implants, with the possible downsides during the healing phase in terms of premature loading. Besides the risk of potential screw loosening with the screw retained systems, there is also another major difference in terms of their construction. With SDS implants, you have this massive top part. The hollow part that holds the post and the screw lies within the massive tulip part. Where the actual implant diameter begins, we have massive, strong zirconia. With other systems, the implant shoulders can become quite thin and fragile, as they have to hold a much thicker abutment that also reaches deeper into the implant body. If you look at cross-sections of the SET System's bone-level implant, for example, as we talked before, the different layers become very thin, and only time and future studies will show us how their long-term stability will turn out and if there is an increased risk of implant or abutment fractures under long-term loading conditions. And besides the technical uncertainties, why would you give up the advantages of a tissue-level implant, getting an absolutely stable and natural soft tissue right after placing the implant, and without the need of a second reopening procedure, and avoiding any gaps and openings next to the bone? In titanium, The argument against the tissue level was mostly aesthetic outcome, as you would have a gray colored gingiva with the titanium shining through, and in case of a recession you would see the blank titanium shoulder of the implant. But with zirconia, especially with implant systems, you're allowed to prep and to reshape. These counter arguments disappear and turn actually into an advantage, as your soft tissue can create a natural seal around your implant, creating outstanding aesthetic and biological outcomes and ensure your long-term stability. But also here the devil is in details, because almost every two-piece bone and tissue level implant works with prefabricated abutment parts, like we are used with titanium. But this fact doesn't allow you to manipulate the existing implant geometry, therefore you can't prep the implant in most of the cases. So like the one-piece implants of Straumann Pure and Ceralock, you have to place the implant shoulder below your soft tissue level, creating a gap between the implant and the abutment within the zone of your biological width. But with zirconia, like the topic we discussed regarding the screw retention, we have a very stiff rock-hard material. If you put zirconia on top of zirconia and there is no cement to fill the gap like crown would do being cemented on top of a one-piece implant or a natural tooth, there is no cold welding or anything similar compared to titanium, meaning the biological gap and the hideaway for microorganisms will be much bigger than with titanium systems. And even with titanium and conical connections, we know today that they don't seal off completely. And indeed, I saw numerous patients from different practices who had problems with either loose restorations from screw-retained restorations or a bad taste or smell due to an insufficient seal between the two zirconia components, the abutment and the implant shoulder. Here, the concept of Camlock by Horizons using a PEG abutment with their Ceralock implant could improve this specific problem. PEG is a biocompatible composite material similar to PEEK and therefore a bit flexible. But on the other hand, they use a titanium screw and they have a very limited choice of only one implant diameter in 3 different lengths. So the concept of SDS is the only one that pays attention to this biological topic, as they don't use an abutment but rather a post which will be covered completely once the final crown is placed, leaving behind only a tissue-leveled cement gap like any other one-piece implant or natural tooth covered with a final crown. So this doesn't mean that SDS is the only two-piece implant system I would recommend. Each system has its pros and cons depending on how you want to use them and the types of restorations you typically do in your practice. And that's, by the way, also why in our beginner coaching and training programs we cover how to choose the right ceramic implant system for your specific needs, because there is no one-size-fits-all solution, and we haven't even touched the surgical considerations, the different forms of the implant bodies and the type of threads they use, which are again a whole topic on their own. But if I would have to draw a conclusion on today's available two-piece ceramic implant systems, I would state that the Swiss Dental Solutions has several advantages regarding their post and no abutment design, with the bottom part of the abutment being part of the actual implant and therefore not only provide the user with a highly biological but also a very stable and solid construction. I personally never had a loose post once they are cemented properly, and so again the only failure possible later on is a loose crown, which can be fixed easily and without effort almost everywhere. So I hope you found this video helpful. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments below, and if you're interested in learning more about the medical and also the economic benefits of zirconia implants in your practice, I regularly hold free video training sessions and webinars, so you will find more information in the description box below. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on future videos. And always remember, if we can do better, we should do better.